This month, we said goodbye to Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4, and Battlefield Hardline on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. While we kind of said a soft goodbye to the Xbox 360 earlier this year as the storefront was taken down, a lot of people were clinging to the idea that you could still play games online, and that is becoming less and less of a possibility. These three Battlefield games are no longer playable online on these consoles, and while arguably this was the worst possible way to play these games due to performance and networking issues and just how great and easy to run these days the PC versions are, a lot of people still played here. I still have hugely fond memories of Battlefield 3 and 4 on both the Xbox 360 and the PS3. I beta tested Battlefield 3 and 4 on the 360, and I remember even the early Total Biscuit videos of Battlefield 3, just like where he would glitch through the map whenever he went prone and lots of stuff. I fondly remember the beta for 3 because it was my first experience to a PC-style shooter on console. I actually started out gaming on the PC, way when I was 9 months old, and played most of my games on PC, other than what we had on Game Boy and PS1 and PS2. Okay, I played a lot of, like, any online game, I only played on PC until I got my Xbox 360. And as I said in that video, you know, my whole world was open up with the new era of online multiplayer that the consoles were bringing to the table. And of course, we had Halo, we had Call of Duty, whatever, but Battlefield was still a kind of true to the PC style experience with the server browser and those kinds of and the bigger matches and the longer matches and those kinds of things that we didn't really see on console anymore. Some of the early console multiplayer shooters only had server browsers because the matchmaking concept basically wasn't invented until Halo 2. But Battlefield 3 really kind of changed the game for that, and it introduced a lot of people to this bigger scale server-based kind of multiplayer experience that felt so groundbreaking, even though it was pushing the limits of the console in so many ways. It also felt like the future. Going back, I played it a fair bit this summer, both on stream and just to capture some gameplay. I was kind of shocked at how bad it honestly looked, because I remember it just blowing my mind with how beautiful the game looked with the... Honestly, even today, if you load it up on PC, the game's graphics are incredible. Like, I would be totally happy with a first-person shooter releasing with graphics that looked like BF3s today. The early Frostbite engine stuff was kind of impressive. And you had the crazy lens flares that were super annoying. But you go back with a modern eye on a 4K TV, being used to more modern games and higher resolutions, and you see so many flaws that you didn't see before. There was aliasing everywhere. That combined with the added... the lens flares from the sun and just general depth of field blur that just like freaked out all the time on the 360 that I didn't remember. And visibility was a huge problem when I went back to play. Combine that with the very low frame rate. It runs at best 30 FPS locked. And it felt super kind of input laggy for most of the matches I played. Ironically, when we loaded up Operation Metro, which I have a lot of stories to tell about that. When we loaded that up on stream, I was kind of convinced the game was running at 60 FPS for a little bit. Obviously, the other ones truly felt like 30. Like, it was very clear we were running at half the frame rate. It wasn't great. But Operation Metro, something clicked whenever it changed over that it felt like it was running way smoother and that input latency was so much lower. But I went back and frame counted, and it is still running at 30 FPS. It is not a 60 FPS experience, but for some reason, it just felt a lot smoother. However, if you ever played Operation Metro back in the day, you were in for a treat. Not only was it a wonderful experience, it's still one of my favorite maps of all time. Like, it was just such a joy to play on, and you'd want to play on the different parts at different points. And I just remember hiding around in the bushes in the open part, and I remember just sneaking around the trains in the later levels. Like, it is such a good, iconic map. But on Xbox 360, it was a console killer. Anytime you got an Operation Metro, if you made it past the first round, your fans were ramping up and blasting like crazy. And if you if you were playing Rush and made it through all the way to the last set of Rush points, it had the tendency, especially if you had a full server, it was guaranteed to turn off the Xbox of like half of the party. I remember so many matches where my friends would just start dropping out, and I had it happen to me quite a few times as well, where once we made it to that last little chunk of the map, if the server was still full, I don't know if it was overheating, I don't know if it was software bugs, but people's Xboxes would literally just turn off mid-game. It was so rare that you actually saw a full Operation Metro map play all the way through. And even when I was doing my streams for this, I wound up switching just to see if it performed any better. I was hoping, they would have unlocked it or something. I put it in my Xbox Series X and played it. And even on there, it obviously didn't overheat or shut down my Xbox Series X, but it did start crashing. It did have software issues, even on the newer Xbox, which was crazy. I didn't play too much of many of the other Battlefields, but I did beta test Battlefield 4 on both PS3 and Xbox 360, and then I played a fair bit on PS3 as well. I did a whole campaign playthrough over on my Epos Vox channel back when that was gaming focused, and I did quite a few matches of multiplayer on there as well. This whole video is a mix of freshly captured this year as well as archive footage just for posterity's sake. And same experience where like it felt groundbreaking, but it also felt like it was pushing the console to its absolute limits. This was a phase where I did not have a great gaming PC. I mentioned before I had a ton of experience with PC games, but then around the Xbox 360 PS3 era, I switched mostly to console as I didn't have a beefy gaming PC once you needed like a high-spec computer. I didn't have anything that could keep up with the modern games. And I still poked around in Battlefield 3 on PC at the time, but I was running at very low frame rates in any of the videos I had from then. You could see I was just really struggling with performance. And so despite whatever flaws these console versions may have had, it wasn't easy having a good gaming PC at the time. And so it was still the smoother experience. These days, I play these games, both 3 and 4, on PC all the time. They are a wonderful experience, even today. With Battlefield 3, you have the Vanish Unleashed mod. With Battlefield 4, just vanilla. Like, it launched in a pretty gnarly state. But after a year of updates, which was unfortunate because then they moved on to Battlefield 1. But after a year of updates, Battlefield 4 was in such a good place. It's still one of my favorite Battlefields to this day. It was just such a good experience. But yeah, we say goodbye to these decrepit servers that ran very poorly for these games, but I think introduced a lot of people to this higher tier of multiplayer. Because you had your Halo, you had your Call of Duties, and those were great. And those Call of Duty ran most of the time at 60 FPS in multiplayer on console, whereas Halo was only 30 and Battlefield was only 30. But neither of them really did the scale of combat like Battlefield did. Like, that was the whole point of the franchise. And I think it introduced a lot of us to that concept who didn't have the ability to play on PC at the time. And I think in a weird way, it almost served as like a gateway to PC gaming for those of us who wanted that experience. Like, I felt driven with as much as I sucked on console my entire life. Like, even though I competed in Halo 3 and Halo Reach days, like, my controller skills have always been poor. I was a mouse and keyboard person the whole time. It drove me to want a better gaming PC so I could play the game competitively on PC with better graphics, better controls, and all of that. And I know a lot of people who felt similarly. And I even remember my first semester of college, I went to my buddy's dorm. I didn't stay in dorms, so I just visited them, checked out the dorm life, saw what it was about. And my buddy had a beefy gaming PC and a 1080p 60 monitor, which was groundbreaking at the time. I was stuck on some 1440 by 900 crappy monitor that came with a desktop. And I played Battlefield 3 on there. And the graphics looked mind-blowing. And it was one of the greatest multiplayer experiences I had ever had. And I remember trying to save some footage from that, and I don't think I ever really got it saved. I think I had trouble copying it from my hard drive, and I never recovered it. But like, I had some of my best performing moments I had ever had in that game up to that point. And I think that sold me then and there. Between that and my other buddy running Team Fortress 2 on their gaming PC all the time, I was like sold. I was like, all right, I have to invest in a good computer. And it was later that year that I built some of my first gaming PCs on the channel that were like high-end components. I had no idea what I was doing at the time, like specs-wise, but it was a gateway for me. And it really sucks seeing servers get shut down like this. I know it costs money to host. I know they have to keep security updates with it, and I know probably very few people are playing on it. But it's so disheartening to see more and more gaming experiences go away because so many publishers and even developers want to control your experience. They want to offer you the one mode that they have monetized to hell and back, and they don't want you to have any of the previous experiences that you might not like anymore, or you might like more because you might not like the new stuff anymore. They want to control every aspect of how you game. And we grew up, or at least I grew up, with every game still being playable. Whether it was just bots or no one left, I can still boot up Call of Duty 1, the Unreal Tournaments, and those just got, thank goodness, those just got rehosted on a new place. Epic just gave permission to old Unreal to start hosting those games again. You could still play Halo CE on PC, the old versions and custom edition. You could play pretty much every old game online because they were built around user-hosted servers and everyone else. Like, they were built with decentralization and stabilization in mind. And then everything from like 2009 onwards is just shutting down. So it's this weird gap in gaming history that for some of us, it was really important years. And we'd like to be able to continue to have like our cool game nights we do on Discord where we go back to old games and stuff. Like, there is a wall of games that we cannot go back to, but we can go to plenty of games before it. And it's just sad. Like I said, I know there's a lot of downsides to keeping stuff online. I also have to question how much it actually costs these big corporations compared to everything else they host. But I just wish more things supported user servers so that we could keep things rolling. But this aging console hardware is not used by very many people. And like I said, PC versions are still playable. Go ahead and share your classic Battlefield console experiences or PC in the comments below. And if this conversation was interesting to you, I highly recommend you go check out the collab discussion I had over on BBK Dragoon's channel about what we've kind of lost along the way in the transition to the past couple generations of games and what we hope to get back as we move forward. Remember to be kind, rewind.